MustGrow Biologics is a fully integrated provider and developer of innovative biological and regenerative agricultural solutions designed to support sustainable farming. We've got CEO Corey Giasson and Colin Bletsky here to review the Q1 financial results and provide a general business update. Please remember this is neither recommendation and advice. Are here to learn about the company. Gentlemen, welcome, and how are things going?
Hi, Martin. Things are going very well. How about yourself?
Doing very well, thank you. It's starting to look like summer here. So why don't you guys go ahead through your presentation, and then we can follow up with questions after that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending. It's exciting for MustGrow to do this first quarter 2025 earnings presentation and take question and answers after. This is our first earnings presentation. We were quite excited to announce the results yesterday. And those are our initial results. We look forward to doing this on a quarterly basis as we go forward, as we drive revenues and start to drive our margin going forward. So it's an exciting time for MustGrow, and we're happy that you'll be able to attend. And thank you for the list of questions that we will address at the end. Before I begin, I'd like to draw your attention to our disclaimer. It's our typical forward-looking statement disclaimer. There are forward-looking statements that are going to be made in this presentation, in the question and answer session. These forward-looking statements may or may not end up being actual results in the future. This disclaimer can be read on our website at mustgrow.ca. It's also in our AIF, which can be seen on our website, and then also at SEDAR+. So Q1 2025 sales results, as you've seen yesterday and in our financial statements, $3.8 million of sales revenue, gross profit of $540,000 approximately, and a gross margin of 14.3%. Again, this is our initial sales numbers that we're reporting. We're excited that we're going to be able to grow these numbers going forward. It's the first quarter that we were able to include Nexus Bioag in our company, our sales and distribution company. It was a transitionary period for MustGrow and with some challenges. You've got a new sales division in there. We were able to get through those challenges, but more importantly, the tariff issue that everybody knows about in Q1. We weren't directly affected by tariffs, meaning our products that we're selling through Nexus in Canada here, some of which are imported from the US, did not have direct tariffs on them. And in addition, our TerraSate product that we produce here in Canada and are selling in the US did not have direct tariffs on it, but indirectly, we were affected. There's uncertainty in the agriculture market, and most importantly, with these tariffs, we've seen a lower Canadian dollar. I believe at the beginning of the quarter, the US to Canadian dollar ratio would have been about $1.37. It increased to $1.45, and we're back down to kind of more normal levels here at about $1.37. So that negatively affected our margin. And again, something that we could not be prepared for, not knowing there would have been a tariff spat. But going forward, we're hoping that's behind us, and we're able to generate stronger margins as we go forward. Our objective, again, we've mentioned this before, is to start driving sales and revenue, significant sales and revenue through our high growth opportunity, both with our own proprietary product line, that being TerraSate and Terra MG. And then in addition, through the sales and distribution division, Nexus Bioag. So we think there's a huge opportunity to start growing revenues, and this was a good start for us. If we take a look at our product pipeline, again, in North America, Canada, the US, we are owning the registrations. TerraSate, we have registrations for a biofertility product in several key states, and sales have started. There was no sales in Q1 because of those sales that have started are more for testing and we're hopeful that in the second half of 2025 into 2026 is when we start to see that sales ramp up, starting with more significant commercial sales. On Terra MG, our biocontrol product, we've been working with the EPA and PMRA for some time now. We're hopeful that in 2026 we might have a registration in one or both jurisdictions, and we're quite excited about that. Canada, US, you can see the difference in the acres. 5.6 million acres of high-value crops in the US. It's your fruit and veggie, your tree, nut, and vine, your root and tuber. In Canada, about 30 million acres of canola and pulse crops combined. and we've been doing a lot of work in both areas. The rest of the world, we don't have boots on the ground. We're utilizing large ag chem companies such as Bayer to help us do the R&D work, get the registrations done, and then eventually have the pipeline of the product into the market. Bayer, we signed a commercial agreement, as you know, in 2023 in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. They paid us an upfront. Going forward here will be milestone payments. And then once a product is registered, potentially in 2027, we'll be starting to receive royalty payments on gross sales. In addition, we have an option to supply them extract on a cost-plus basis. So that was our first commercial licensing agreement in areas outside of North America. We still have Asia, we still have South America, and it would be great if we could apply that same model, that same licensing agreement to other jurisdictions. And we are working with numerous groups in these other areas, but not on an exclusive basis, such as what we were doing with Bayer in the territory of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. On the distribution side, Nexus BioAg, we purchased that asset from Univar at the beginning of 2025. Q1 was our first sales. As you know, this team and the historic product line had sales of about 15 to 20 million. I'd say we're still on par to obtain those sales. We'll get into a little bit more detail on that here in the next few slides. And in addition, we've made a few announcements, and we're hoping to make more announcements as we go forward about adding to this product line with third-party products that are accretive to Canadian agriculture here in Canada. MustGrow, we're still a technology company. We have 112 patents issued and pending. We still have other areas that are earlier stage development or even later stage development, and I draw attention to the post-harvest biocontrol with potato sprouting, and that there's a huge need for that product in the market. We've done a lot of work in the past. We're currently doing a lot of great work, larger stage trials. We look forward to moving these areas, specifically the post-harvest biocontrol, from being the new applications and technology into the commercial space, such as what we're doing, say, in North America on the biocontrol side, or else even commercial licensing, that type of technology. But again, I just want to draw your attention. We still maintain our patents, and we still are looking to generate new IP as we go forward.
So going into a little bit further, as Corey mentioned, TerraSante was registered. We had initial sales going on, as well as testing across many different parts of the U.S., specifically looking into potatoes, strawberries, leafy greens, and to other crops as well. And with this technology, we are seeing some very good results now coming in from the data that was done initially. So we do have and are now selling into the market, as Corey mentioned, starting to sell in, really try to drive that ramp up at the later half of this year and into 2026. And some of the key things for us is the product continues to work. We see great benefits on the soil microbiome, and the plant itself, creating higher yields. And this is across multiple different crops, multiple different geographies. When we look at it as well, we are now into a stage where we are getting repeat sales. So working with the farmers, working with these large farmers and retails, having to build it up and show that ramp up, show the success, and continue to drive those sales and ramp up process. The good thing about TerraSante, we are producing in Western Canada, but there are also, Corey and the team are assessing production in the US and other Asian production. So continuing our low CapEx model, looking at other third-party tollers across the globe to continue to drive our costs down, continue to drive the ability to get product in, and really have that opportunity to penetrate and hit some of those large acres and the organic acres in the US. When you look at Terra MG, as Corey mentioned, we continue to move this asset forward right across the globe. It shows success, it shows efficacy versus the chemistries, and whether that be the fumigant chemistries such as chlorpicrin, metam sodium, or other, but even against the nematicides and even some fungicides. So looking at this organic product, we are moving forward in all the treatments and all the testing that need to be done to hit and to get to this commercialization. So as mentioned, we are working as MustGrow team initially in Canada and US, going through the registration process and hoping to get those registrations by 2026. That would be a significant opportunity for us in Western Canada, looking at canola and pulse crops, potatoes as well, but also into the US market to complement what we're doing at TerraSante. In the rest of the world, we continue to work with Bayer. Bayer has been a tremendous partner. They're putting a lot of resource, a lot of effort behind this molecule to get it proven through the development, registration, and into that commercialization phase. So working with them, we are looking at different regions within their territory to try accelerate that registration process and the commercialization of TerraMG. And we're also in process working with many different groups in many different regions around the world, doing the testing, doing the regulatory assessments, and working with the teams from other organizations to assess what's the right pathway forward in other areas such as Latin America, Asia, where we see significant opportunity. And just like TerraSante, low CapEx model, looking at other production areas. But I think when we look at Western Canada specifically, through the Nexus team, we are now doing and have been doing BAT trials, so BioAg Advantage trials with Nexus for a number of years. We continue to do that this year. So if you think of Western Canada, we are doing that ground level grower trials to show the benefits of TerraMG in field. And that hopefully will give us that ramp up and that quick acceleration point into the Canadian market once we do have the PMR registration. And Nexus BioAg, when we look at this team, it all comes down to route to market, access to market, and the relationship. Nexus BioAg brought a very experienced team for us into Western Canada who had a great experience with growers, great experience and knowledge of the retail chain, as well as the head office companies. So when we look at the overall opportunity with Nexus BioAg and bringing new products in, as we mentioned, there's roughly 5 new products that we've brought in so far into the Nexus team. Those products will hopefully drive higher margin and higher sales over the time period. And when we look at the Nexus sales structure and what they do, as Corey mentioned, they were hitting in previous years between 15 to 20 million. We do see that cyclicality in Canadian agriculture as well. Q1, typically a good month or a good quarter. Q2 and Q3 are typically slow in Canada just based on the cyclicality. Q4 with grower buying, retail buying, and other areas, you do see a big ramp up. So if you think of the head and shoulders of Canadian agriculture and the sales aspect, we look at Nexus BioAg and we still see that very large, tremendous opportunity. The other part of Nexus, having that ability to take this plug and play model and potentially go into the US and complement what we're doing with TerraSante, look at other brands in the US marketplace and look at others. So Nexus, as Corey mentioned, there's been good strides. We've had a good quarter. We're very pleased with the way things have gone, but it's just the starting of that building block and really building in new products into our portfolio. And then we threw this one up. This is something that I think would be good to illustrate to all the investors and the market. When you look at the biological space globally, there are well over 400 different companies looking to commercialize technology. Some of these are similar to ours. Some of these are a lot different. But the grand scheme of things is a lot of these companies struggle with access to market. And if you think of the acquisition of Nexus BioAg, understanding the grower, understanding that way to get through distribution, the logistics, all those different aspects is extremely key. We see a tremendous opportunity to continue to roll in new opportunities, new products, and into our pipeline to have a large complement and have a lot of synergies in Canada and potentially in the US and other areas. So when we look at the global scale, Nexus was a key piece for us to get closer to the grower, to get a better understanding of what's going on, and having those logistics taken care of so that we can move in with these potentially new brands and new opportunities going forward in the future.
So the potential milestones over the next few years, again, it's all about driving revenue and driving our margin as we go forward into positive cash flows and EBITDA. TerraSante, again, large commercial trials are happening now, and they're going to continue. We're only targeting a small fraction of the 5.6 million acres that exist in the United States. But with these trials that we've been doing, and repeat trials with positive results, we expect to see the initial sales ramp up for TerraSante happen the second half of 2025 or into 2026. And that's exciting for us. We know there's a huge opportunity for this biofertility product in that market, and we look forward to really ramping up sales there. In terms of TerraMG, again, it's all about getting the registrations with the EPA and PMRA. There's potential that we could have our registration in 2026. But as Colin mentioned, with those BAT Bio Advantage trials happening in Canada, and they've happened in 2024, we've got product being tested right now, large-scale farm trials happening right now. We'll be ready to hit the ground running for commercial sales there. So that sales ramp up hopefully with registration will happen a lot quicker than what we were seeing with TerraSante. In the US, again, we don't have the trials happening. It'll be more similar to what's happening with TerraSante. But that being said, we also had a product in that market, a biocontrol product in that market, the granular product, and we'll hopefully able to leverage the results that we had in the fruit and veggie industry down there. With Bayer, again, we continue to work on registrations with them. We're hopeful our first registration is in 2027, potentially. And up until that time, we will be collecting milestone payments as we go forward. They've been a great partner, and we look forward to continuing to work with them. Nexus Bioag, again, continuing to bring in third-party products to sell in our product pipeline with them. And then as soon as we have Terra MG registered here in Canada, we're going to be able to hit the ground running and really drive sales through our distribution division, which is going to be quite exciting. This all while we'll have a very tight capital structure, high growth, asset light type model, 52 million shares outstanding, 59 fully diluted. We don't need to go and build a plant to produce TerraSante or to produce Terra MG. There's potential for toll manufacturers or partners to do that. So we're quite excited about that. And then with the Nexus Bioag distribution model, again, getting access to third-party products to sell through our sales channel. Again, we don't need to go and acquire the products or the technologies to go and do that. So it's a high growth model, asset light. We see a tight capital structure going forward. Our cash position of 2 million. We are assessing potential opportunities here to access capital, which could help fund this high growth. In addition, it could be a non-dilutive credit or also licensing partnership. So we're assessing a bunch of different opportunities to continue to drive growth here as we go forward. And we're excited that this was just the first start. This is Q1. We look forward to doing this again as the quarters go on, and we'll be able to compare our results quarter on quarter and eventually year on year. So Martin, happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Sales so far were all from Canada, right? So am I correct in assuming they were all related to Nexus Bioag, and were any of them from TerraSante?
Yes, Q1 sales were all in Canada. So we do make a note on that in the financial statements. So the product that is being tested in the US right now for TerraSante, those sales would have happened in Q4 of last year. So again, that testing is happening right now, and we're hoping that the TerraSante sales, we'll start to see that ramp up in the second half of this year, potentially in Q2 as well. But again, all of the sales that you see, that 3.8 million for Q1 would have been in Canada, which would have been through Nexus Bioag.
Is the seasonality for TerraSante the same as for the rest of Nexus Bioag, or is that, and especially for testing, does that have different seasonality to it?
It's a little bit different, Martin, and with the multiple cropping systems in California specifically and parts of the US, you do see timing when you sell into the channel, into the retails, into the large farmers a little bit different. It will be more over the entire season, but still there's a heavy flow towards into Q3, into the beginning of Q4, as well as into Q1. So when we look at it right now, it is building all the stuff we're doing right now. The sales we're getting in 2025 initially are all ramping up towards that 2025, early 2026 sales ramp up.
How have tariffs affected sales? How, if at all, will they affect the TerraSante sales specifically?
We have products coming in from the United States that we're selling through Nexus Bioag. Those products were not directly affected by the tariffs. There was potential. We did have products sitting at the border trying to figure out if they were or not during that period, but fortunately enough, they were not directly affected. Same with the TerraSante that were produced in Canada and have shipped down to the US. We're not directly affected by tariffs, thank goodness. Indirectly, though, we have been affected by tariffs. For instance, the Canadian canola farmer has 100% tariff on their canola products selling into China. And that has created, obviously, some concern with one of our customers here in Canada, being the Canadian canola farmer. In addition, on the foreign exchange, we've seen the Canadian dollar take a dive during Q1, and that definitely negatively affected our margins and that. So Indirectly, we are being affected by tariffs just like everybody else, but unfortunately, it's not direct.
I think you've addressed this already, but the question is here. MustGrow is targeting sales for TerraSante in the back part of the year. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry, Colin. Yeah, we're hopeful that in the second half of 2025 or potentially 2026, we don't know, but I mean, we hope that with the testing that we're doing here right now, we're going to be starting to see some purchase orders come in and start to see sales ramp up.
Are you able to provide any sort of a forecast for TerraSante?
No, we don't provide forecasts at this time.
Your gross margin was around 14% through like maturity with you taking it on. Is that going to be a typical gross margin for you, or through seasonality and just scale or more experience will you be able to increase that?
I'm hopeful that we can increase that. Again, we've seen some headwinds during Q1 given the foreign exchange, which negatively affected our gross margin. We have new products coming on, which should have higher gross margins. Sorry, they do have higher gross margins. We've announced a few of them. And in addition to that, our own product line and that. So again, we see our gross margin being strong as we go forward here. And this was a good start, but we look forward to what we can do here in the next couple of quarters.
Is the regenerative or natural input market for agriculture that's growing at a faster rate than sort of the more traditional farm agriculture inputs? Is that correct, or what do the dynamics of those two markets relatively look like?
Yeah, it's growing at a significant double-digit CAGR versus probably single-digit CAGR for the rest of the synthetic market for pesticides and fertilizers.
When do you expect to see positive free cash flow?
I mean, our goal is to have positive cash flows, next year, potentially into 2027. The key here now is to drive revenues, to drive margin, and with that, we'll start to see positive cash flows in that. So I still think we're on track for that next year. But again, it's an estimate, and we don't know, if there's going to be another tariff spat or stuff that we don't know.
Is there a head and shoulder season in agriculture in Canada and the US?
Yeah, and I've explained this, Martin. There definitely is, and it's agriculture cyclical. Things get sold at specific times, and it is not only Canada, US, but it's every part of the world. So there are definite cyclicalities when it comes to the sales process in agriculture.
Do you need more working capital for inventory to drive your revenues?
Yes, we're assessing that access to capital. I mean, we've got some. We believe we've got two areas that we can really start to drive revenues and margin, and access to capital. We're assessing some of which could be non-dilutive type capital, and that as we go forward.
How have the new Canadian products performed that you announced subsequent to closing the Nexus transaction?
Yeah, and on those, Martin, sales have started, and with those products being new, it is still a process, just like TerraSante in the US, to build up that demand, build up the grower acceptance, build up the retail acceptance as well, and that's a process that's ongoing correctly. So I would say they have gone well. They're great products, great product lines, great companies that we're working with, and the team is actively promoting them and working towards that sales ramp up.
When you're launching a new product into the agricultural market, is there a typical sort of process that it goes through? The first year they do small samples, and next year they do larger samples, and then could you just describe what that sort of typical round, if there is a typical one, what that looks like and how long it takes to really gain traction?
Martin, there's not anything that's truly typical. But it is fairly standard. In most cases, it doesn't matter where you are, whether it be Canada, US, whether you're a canola grower or you're a strawberry grower. Typically, you will start with a smaller amount of acres or hectares, wherever you are in the world, of trial. And you want to test it, you want to see it, you want to work with it on your own farm, you want to see how it goes into your own situation. So in most cases, a lot of growers are only giving you 2 to 5%, typically 1 to 5% even of their acres. Once they see that benefit, they'll move that upwards, 20, 30%. And eventually over time, a three-year period, you'll get the peak penetration on that grower, I would say, field. You have to do that with almost not every grower, but in a lot of key areas, what we try to do is work with the key influential growers, the key innovators, the key innovative retails and companies to build up that experience, build up that demand, and build up that acceptance, which then spills over to others. So it's not truly typical. Every grower is going to be different, but for the most case, it is a 3-year typical ramp up period to get to full penetration on a grower or a different company farm.
And I guess if it's just even new to the farmer, it may have been in the market for a couple of years, but if each plot of land is different, they're going to test it out and ramp it up, even if it's a relatively mature product?
Not necessarily with a mature product, Martin. And
okay.
If there is a lot of acceptance already built up in the marketplace, growers will go forward. Now, if you're still a new grower to a product after 2.5 to 3 years, typically you will still see a bit of a lag period, and that grower needs to get comfortable yet. But in most cases, once you get the retails, the head offices, and the key innovators accepting the product, you see a very quick ramp up period. In Canada, it's that typical hockey stick curve, right? You need to get past and get through those innovators first to really get to that next level of penetration.
Are there any more impactful products in the pipeline to run through Nexus?
There's many. And as I pointed out in that slide, there's well over 400 different companies looking for access to different market capabilities. And those capabilities come down to knowing the grower, having that relationship with the grower, having the relationship with the retail, knowing the logistics, and knowing how to position something when, where, and how. And that's what we've acquired with Nexus. That's what we know with Nexus, and that's what we plan on building out potentially into other regions around the world as well.
I think you've largely addressed this, but just add anything additional if it makes sense. Can you provide some color on the progress of TerraSante? In the past, it was hoped it would start to see sales this year.
And as I mentioned, it is still, we had, I would say, a good level of sales in 2024, and a lot of people across the western coast of the U.S. try it across many different crops. We've had good success when it comes down to the data and the trials, and we've had some good acceptance into the key retail chains that we are working with as well. With that said, there's now some repeat sales, but those sales are still going into building up and building up more acceptance across a wider network. So yes, TerraSante is moving. I believe there definitely will be sales coming, but more meaningful sales we do expect potentially at the end of 2025 to early 2026, when that next round of crop planting goes in, and specifically looking at the U.S. market in California.
Are there any updates on the registration process for Terra MG?
Yeah, so in North America here, Canada, the U.S., where we're working on registrations, things are moving along. It's progressing. There is potential that we have the registrations in 2026, potentially. Again, we can't, we don't know exactly how fast these governments are going to continue to move. But in outside of North America, in Europe, Middle East, Africa, Bayer is progressing along nicely too, with the registrations in some of those countries in that territory. Do
you have any guesstimates or expectations on which regions could receive registration first? Would that be like PMRA, EPA, or somewhere offshore?
It'd be a guesstimate. I mean, I'd say Canada, the US, and potentially some, there's Bayer's looking at numerous countries in their turn.
Is the TR4 affecting bananas still on the table?
It is, yes, and we are part of the association that is looking at TR4 out of South America. That is something that MustGrow joined roughly about 1.5 years ago. And as part of the Bayer agreement, they do have a first right of refusal now with bananas, and they are actively looking at it in key effective regions. TF4 is a very difficult disease to work with, just based on a lot of government protocols and government quarantines. So it is, has been a little bit slower than I was hoping. But the aspiration is there. Bananas is still a key global produce. It's a key global market, one of the biggest ones in a lot of areas, and it's still having a tremendous detrimental effect to that crop. So we do see a lot of opportunity, but we still have to go through the government channels and the correct process to get the product to market.
And just to be clear, it's still, like you mentioned, it's having a big impact. They haven't found a cure yet, so to speak, for it. It's still sort of inching along and consuming more and more croplands.
That is correct, Martin. And if you go on to many different websites looking at it, there is a still major impact around TR4. One of the biggest mitigating factors, there's no, from everything we've seen, no chemical control. It does not look like there's genetic control. I don't know for sure on that side, but the largest part is if you get it in some regions, essentially everything around that area is quarantined, and there's a lot of protocols around that. So governments are just putting band-aid solutions to try and minimize the impact.
With Bayer, how often do you meet or conference with them, and are they taking this seriously? Do you get a sense that a lot of people are, how many people are working on the project?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Bayer has been a tremendous partner. They have done a great job, and we have a great relationship with them across multiple different facets, whether they be into the regulatory, technical, and into now commercial areas, and even into the production side as well. When you look at them, we are meeting with them as regularly as we need. This is a large organization, and we do have access when we need and continue to have those key dates and timings. And are they taking it serious? I would say yes. If you look at what Bayer and all the chemical companies are having to go through right now on challenges around the synthetic chemicals and the registrations, regulations, and other things, in Europe, in the US now, and even in other parts of the world, Bayer is taking it very seriously, and they have signed us on, as well as other complementary type solutions, sustainable solutions that can help and be part of that whole profile. And when it comes to people, listen, this is an organization of 1,000 upon 1,000 people. We are working with their technical teams, their head office. We're working with the regulatory teams. We're working with the marketing and commercial teams, development teams. So to put a number on how many people are working on this project, it's pretty difficult, but they are a serious partner. They are doing a tremendous job, and we look forward to continuing with Bayer and to hopefully continue the success with them.
Regarding your share price, do you think the share price weakness since January is due to the convertible bond issue?
No, I don't believe it is at all. I mean, that was we raised $2.5 million. Management participated in it. We did 400,000. Existing shareholders did 1.7 million. And we had some long-term shareholders also join. And so no, I don't believe any of that. The convertible bond had anything to do with the sell-off. I believe the sell-off in January, in Q1 would have probably more due to the tariff issue, the uncertainty in the capital markets.
In the US, there's the whole MAHA, or Make America Healthy Again, and the Kennedy, him sort of being against synthetic products in general. Are you seeing any further interest, or is that giving you some tailwind in terms of acceptance through the EPA or just farmers in general, or any other aspect of the market?
Even before the MAHA and Kennedy drawing attention to this area, I think it was a pretty strong. The regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, has been building momentum for years prior to this, and that snowball is continuing to grow, and we're excited to be a part of it.
This first quarter with Nexus BioAg, were there many one-time costs or initial startup things that affected the cost structure significantly, or would that kind of cost structure you have look to stay kind of similar through the remainder of the year?
No, I mean, there's definitely some legal fees to be had to complete the transaction. So, there's always there is some costs involved in doing a deal, and they would have been reflected in Q1.
Is Nexus BioAg only focused on Western Canada, or do they have penetrate the Eastern Canadian market as well?
Yeah, we have people right across Canada, Martin, and we are involved in all different areas. I would say when you look at the key regions, Western Canada is by far the largest, just based on the overall acres and arable land. Eastern Canada is very important as well when you start thinking corn, soybean, winter wheat, and some of the other key high-value crops in the southern part of Ontario. So no, we do have coverage right across Canada.
Will Nexus MustGrow be at the Ag in Motion convention or conference, I guess, this year? If yes, will they have sample plots?
Yeah, and this year we will not be, just based on timing. We hope to be there maybe in person just to meet with key customers. And all of our plots are large-scale plots done at farm gate level and with the farmers directly. So there will not be any plots rated Ag in Motion. Most of our efforts are situated in areas where there are, I would say, impact around clubroot and Aphanomyces, northern Alberta, southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan into Manitoba. So we will not be having any test plots at Ag in Motion.
There's a question here on your share structure, and this may be better taken offline, but your fully diluted shares went down by roughly 250,000. Is that options not being exercised? And the convertible debentures also dropped by 800,000. Can you make any comments on these observations this viewer commented on here?
Yeah, I'd have to take a look into that. But yeah, get in touch with us directly. Happy to discuss. Yep.
There's a question here on potential raising capital, and I think you've addressed that. Is there anything else you want to comment on?
No, I think we addressed it. I mean, we believe we have high growth in both areas, both our proprietary and then also our sales division. And for that high growth, we're assessing opportunities to secure capital, which could help fund that high growth, and that whether that be non-dilutive financing, potentially licensing partnerships, or other types of financial arrangements.
Someone's asking here, when you present your product, and I guess they're referring to TerraSante, but maybe some of the other Nexus Bio ag ones, and farmers decline to try it out. Is there a reason they don't try it out? Distrust of new products, general conservatism, or maybe only good for certain markets? Is there any, I know the overcoming objections in the sales process. What are some of those objections?
Yeah, and listen, you're always going to have some objection from different people. And when we initially start with new products, it is targeted around key influencers who typically take a product on, but there's always unforeseen issues whether it be weather, timing. In Western Canada, we have a very small window from getting our product into that pre-plant application before seeding actually happens. So sometimes you have to do a mix and match, trying to make sure you get the product hitting the ground. In the US, there are multiple different companies targeting that same grower. So you have to come with the right value proposition, with the right technical aspect and the understanding. And hence where we typically try work with those key growers who are willing to look at this, who have a bit of an understanding, and who we have relationships already with our sales consultants in the Californian, Idaho, Washington, Oregon markets, Arizona. So we typically, focus on those folks, but there's always objections, Martin. It all comes to timing. Farmers need to be very efficient. They have to get the product, their seed in the ground, planted quickly. And sometimes you lose a trial just based on timing.
With Janssen no longer in the picture, did their departure affect EPA standing or timeline with Terra MG in the US?
No, Janssen wasn't involved in the US with the EPA. We were working with them on the post-harvest biocontrol, particularly for potato sprouting. And that, so that would have been focusing with them on mostly in Europe, and that, so it had zero to do with the US.
Do your products have lengthy shelf lives, or must they be applied in the season in which they are purchased?
Yeah, our proprietary products have on the label, a 2-year shelf life. The overall shelf life is longer, but just to make sure that the product continues to turn and inventory is turning, it is a 2-year shelf life. With some of the new technologies coming in, it'll be varied depending on the product you have, whether it be the foliar micronutrients to the nitrogen stabilizers into the other biostimulants. So it's going to depend on those aspects. But in most cases, all the products we have are within that 2-year time frame.
And I guess farmers tend not to, you don't want to get too much inventory on your shelves. They got to watch their cash flow, and that they don't want to be buying stuff for 3-4 years out, I presume.
Inventory is king, whether it be farmers, whether it be retails, or whether it be MustGrow. So we manage that as best we can. And our greatest, I always say this in my 30 years in the ag industry, my goal is to sell out and not have any inventory. But you always foresee some potential challenges down the way. But for us, having the 2-year shelf life is a big benefit.
It gives a nice buffer there in case there's a little
Correct.
bit of overpurchase.
Yeah.
What is the potential of opening up Asia and the rest of the world in the not too distant future for the MustGrow line?
Yeah, those markets are very large. If you think of the uptake of biologicals, sustainable products, specifically in Brazil, in Argentina, that spills over into South Africa. If you think of the opportunity of agriculture in Australia being very similar to Canada, soils in Australia not being as productive as Canadian soils, so they do respond better. It all comes down to the time. It comes down to finding the right partner, as we are a smaller team and we need to focus and get things right here in North America. And we continue to look for those new partners to help us get into these other markets where regulatory or language or even understanding that grower retail interactions is key. So that's where we are focused on currently is supporting the business in North America, supporting the Bayer partnership, and also continuing to look for those new partners to help drive growth in those areas. But if somebody asked me where would you go if you had 5 different choices into the world, and my choices would be Brazil, 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 Brazil.
Does Nexus produce its initial product line themselves, or the products they sold produced by third parties?
Yeah, as we went on that the line, we work with multiple different partners across North America to bring the product line in. So all of the products that we are working with in the Nexus line are in licensed through distribution contracts or licensing agreements through other quality third-party partners.
Nexus Bio is essentially a distributor, with a value-added distributor, right?
Value-added distributor, but I would say it's more than that. Just being a distributor means that you're just reselling products. Nexus, when you look at their team, the expertise, and the relationships, they are truly a value-added, I would say almost more of an agronomy company with a distribution arm. So very good on the technical side, building up that expertise, being able to flush out good products versus bad products through the trial program. And the team we have now and acquired from Univar has a lot of experience and a lot of cred in the industry. So it's a tremendous team.
Is there a push to open up or get approval in more of the states in the U.S.?
At this point, no. We want to focus on accelerating sales into that Californian, Washington, Oregon, Idaho markets. We've had very good success so far on data, in potatoes, now into strawberries, looking into leafy greens. And the bulk of those sales and growth is along the West Coast. We are assessing other areas. If I look at Pennsylvania, I look into other key states. The opportunity is still there, but for focus, for effort, and where we need to spend our dollars, it is really focused along the West Coast and into Idaho.
You're working on many areas with a small team. Is there any activity going forward with the TR4? I think you've addressed that. I don't know, anything else to add?
Nope. It's we work with big partners. It's a market that we need to have a lot of information, a lot of people looking at it. So hence why we're working with Bayer in that marketplace.
I'm not quite sure I understand this question, but I'll throw it out here. Have the TerraSante sales been mostly to influencers or actual growers?
Yeah, so no, they are actual growers. So what we try to do is work with the influential growers. So growers who typically want to try new technologies, want to try change the way they're doing things. And those growers typically have a lot of influence in a specific region. And whether that be a very large Hutterite colony in Washington that is being able to show and display the product to other large colonies in that region, to some of the key high-value fruit and vegetable companies that, are the multi-billion-dollar companies utilizing the product in California. So when we look at it, we are working with growers and growers specifically. We still do some small trial plots with key university or research companies, and some of those are key. And a big specific one is Cal Poly, who, they have a field day with over 900 strawberry growers in California. We do work with them as well, and that's an area we still do a mix of small and large plot, just to make sure that you can see all the different intricacies of your product and in different areas.
Is your marketing strategy, is it to give away free samples to some growers, or do they pay for samples? Can you economically sort of give away some product for them to initially try it?
Yeah, and with the value proposition of our product, specifically in the U.S. market on TerraSante, we have sold our product. Product is sold. There's some key incentives to get data back from large growers for future purchases, but we don't give free product away in that marketplace. So we see the value and we see the opportunity with TerraSante, so all that product is sold in. In Western Canada, typically the product is given to the grower to put down in the big batch trials. We legally cannot sell the product in Canada without the registration. So hence why you have to do a mix. TerraSante is registered in the US. We are selling it in. Growers are using it. And like I said, some of those are coming back for repeat sales now. In Canada, since we are not registered yet through PMRA, we have to give that product away, and it has to be a non-sale aspect.
Now that you're a real revenue producing company, have you found you're attracting any new types of shareholders or institutional shareholders? And what things are you doing to increase awareness of this stock?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we made the first step was announcing our sales revenue, and so I think we're going to get more eyes on our company. There is investors out there, institutional investors out there. You need to be generating revenues to draw any attention. This was the first step. We're doing lots of different conferences out there, getting more eyes on us. Colin and I just did probably a couple months ago the Market One Media on BNN. So we're going to start getting our name out there more and more. But the big thing for us to get investor attention is driving sales, and that's going to be our number one objective, is continuing to grow that sales number and then the margins below. So that'll get the most interest.
Gentlemen, we are out of time and out of questions. So thank you very much. Any final comments or words before we wrap it up?
Oh, none on my end. Thank you, Martin, and thank you for the list of questions from the participants. We look forward to doing this on a quarterly basis, and I guess the next time we'll do one of these, unless there's something significant with the company, would be in August. So we'll see you then.
Excellent. Corey, Colin, thank you very much. Have a great day, and talk to you again soon. Cheers.
Thanks, Martin. Bye.